How did you accidentally prove you're cool? My first bartending shift ever. I picked up a fairly expensive bottle of Patron Añejo. It slipped from my hand. I held out my foot to slow the fall of the bottle, and the bottle ended up resting on my outstretched foot completely unharmed. The one customer that was there saw the whole thing and freaked out, thinking I've been bartending for decades. I've never felt prouder of my reflexes. I was rolling last Saturday night out at the bars, and I heard someone screaming inside this cookie restaurant at like 2 a.m. So I drunkenly ran in because from the window it looked like an old friend of mine and I thought maybe something was wrong. I get inside and decide I want to surprise him by running up and aggressively hugging him from behind. So I wrap my arms around him and scream, "Guess who, mother effer?" And all of a sudden, the few other people in this cookie shop run over and tackle us to the ground. I'm beyond effed up, so I just lay there with my arms locked around my friend while people are on top of us. Someone then shouts, "I got his gun." Yep, not only was this guy not my friend, but he was in fact robbing this place. I had just drunkenly stopped an effing robbery. Apparently, when I hugged him and shouted "Guess who?", he got so scared that he dropped his gun, allowing the other people to rush in and subdue him. I scored a goal in a soccer game. I'm lousy at sports, always have been, but in 7th grade I signed up for a lunch break soccer tournament. As expected, I was awful. All I could do was run around and get in the way of the opposing team. But one day I was near the goal defended by the other team, while nearly all the other players were heading back to the other end of the field. One of my teammates kicked the ball hard in my direction. Someone yelled my name. I saw the ball. I put up my hands to block it, remembered that hands aren't allowed in soccer, and ducked. The ball hit my head and bounced straight toward and into the goal, much to everyone's utter amazement. We won that game. I never played soccer again. Talked to 6 police officers on acid. I forgot I'd taken acid, and they seemed friendly, so I approached them and asked them if I could really only get to the train station using the escalator, cause my dog hates those. One of the officers started asking me questions about the dog, but it was my friend's dog, and I'm not a big dog person, so I didn't know. Thankfully, that wasn't at all suspicious to them, and they explained the obvious to me, that it wasn't possible to get to the station without the escalator. Duh. When the dog and I got to the top of the stairs, it finally dawned on me that I'd just talked to a crap ton of officers on acid voluntarily, and I felt badass and also open-minded, as I'm not from a police-friendly community. I was also very happy that the police officers had been so nice to me. In high school, I walked by 2 kids in the hallway. Kid 1 playfully threw a water bottle at Kid 2's back just as we passed each other. The bottle bounced off and I caught it with my hand without looking or even turning my head, and I just had a blank, nonchalant expression as I did that. I handed it back to them with a poker face, like a boss. I stopped a lady at a crosswalk because her underwear was hanging out of the back of the skirt. She stepped back off the crosswalk and about 2 seconds later, a vehicle making a turn left at high speed smashed into parked cars right next to where she would have been standing. She would have been dead. I had headphones in, walking downtown a busy street, and the kid almost hit me with his bike coming down the driveway, so I stopped the bike by the handlebars. The mom came running down the driveway and I was thinking, oh great, a Karen. After taking my headphones out, she thanked me in a panic for stopping her son from flying into the street as a car passed by. I never noticed it drive by. We were playing a game of dodgeball, and since there were too many people on the benches, the coach decided to add a rule. Anyone who can throw the ball directly into the basketball hoop can immediately deliver everyone. I had one of the balls in hand when he said that, and the moment he signaled the game to continue, I threw the ball randomly because I have the worst aim ever, and somehow it went straight in. I never managed to pull it off a second time, but I rode that high out for the rest of the year. Waitressing in college, I was carrying a huge tray of dirty dishes from the dining room to the kitchen down a little hallway. I slipped on some water, went down hard on my butt, but managed to keep the tray perfectly level and didn't spill a thing. Not a major achievement, but kept me from having to clean for the next half hour. I hit my mate in the nutsack with a tennis ball from across the football field once. Accidentally corrected a skid when I lost control of my car on an icy road. I hit my brakes too hard and noticed my car started to drift to the left. Instinctively, I let off the gas and turned my steering wheel left into the drift, and my car went back to driving in a straight line. I accidentally caught an interception in high school and scored a touchdown. I was just as surprised to catch it as everyone else, since I was just crossing over, and the next thing I know, I see the football flying over me. I instinctually reached up and caught it, and the only thing in my head at that point was run, so I booked it and got a 60-yard touchdown. Accidentally did a full 360 in my car while driving down an icy road in the winter. Nearly shat myself while watching the telephone pole getting closer, but I saved the spin and kept driving along like I meant to do it. I was a lifeguard on the ocean. I was having a pretty bad day, and on top of it, my lunch was postponed an hour. I headed up the beach to the nearest hotel to eat. As I was leaving the restaurant, I heard a crowd of people screaming near the pool. As I came down the stairs towards, I saw a young child floating face down in the water. I immediately pulled the kid out and gave rescue breathing until the EMT could arrive. The next day, the parents walked down to my stand to thank me. They were originally told by their doctors they couldn't have children, but a few years later were blessed with this young boy, their only child. The mother told me I was their guardian angel that day. I'm not a very religious person, but this story still gives me goosebumps, knowing that I was the right person in the right place at the right time for that boy. I started off angry about my lunchtime change, but this was the outcome. My dad accidentally had the best acid trip of his life at a Grateful Dead concert. I'm old, my dad's old. This happened way back. At age 18, my dad had to wear a body cast due to surgery for his scoliosis. His buddies heard of a Grateful Dead concert a couple towns over in California, and they invited him along. My dad was laid flat in the back of an old Studebaker station wagon for the ride. When they arrived, my dad's buddies asked him to hide their hits of paper acid in his body cast so they could be discreet, since all of them had been arrested for possession prior. My dad obliged, and all was going well for a bit. Once the Grateful Dead started playing, my dad was dancing around best he could and began to sweat. Cue the paper acid being absorbed into his system, and suddenly he is tripping balls at a once-in-a-lifetime concert. My ex told me a story about this one guy at the mall in her hometown. According to her, this guy was a dealer, and one day he had a ton of acid strapped to his body. He was dealing in the mall. He got stopped by a couple officers and tried to run. Because of sweat, he absorbed all that acid, and from that day forward, he thought he was an Orange Julius. A store at the mall at the same time sold these drinks. He would freak out if people knocked him over, which jerks would do just to freak him out. No idea of the validity of the story, just how it was told to me. I saved my friend's life, and maybe doomed her cousin to death instead. Okay, so this was the late 70s. My friend and next-door neighbor and I were maybe 4 or 5 at the time. She had family visiting at the time, and the visiting family left their 2 or 3-year-old son out to play with us in the front yard. For sake of brevity, I'll just say we were 5 and the son was 3. Yep, you heard correctly. They left their 3-year-old to be watched over by a pair of 5-year-olds. This was back in the days when lawn darts were a kid's toy and there were no mandatory seatbelts, etc. So my friend and I were being 5-year-olds, playing around and not watching her little cousin as closely as we should have been. Suddenly, I see her little cousin, clad in nothing but a diaper, walk out into the street just as a pickup truck comes roaring down the road. I started screaming for him to come back. My friend, then alerted to what was going on, bolted into the street to fetch her cousin. I, purely instinctively, lurched forward and grabbed her dress and pulled on her, but only slowing her down. As she got past the point of the parked cars, the truck hit her cousin, killing him instantly, just a few feet in front of us. Her family heard us screaming and ran outside to see their son lying dead in the roadway. That is the first time I ever heard the banshee wail of a parent that had lost a child. That sound. It's not a scream, it is a sound so much more visceral, soul-crushing and terrifying than any sound you can consciously make. I watched the boy's father cradling his son's body in the roadway like the dramatic death scenes you see in movies. Some seriously effed up stuff for a pair of 5-year-olds to experience. I don't know how I am not more effed up than I am. So by pulling on my friend's dress, I may have well prevented 2 deaths that day. On the other hand, she might have been able to snatch her cousin away to safety at the last second. I still don't know which it is 4 decades later, and it haunts me. It's tough just to write/relive this, especially since I had kids of my own. Those memories have taken on a whole other meaning. Moral of the story is, always watch your kids. Kids do not know danger when it's near them. Thanks for supporting Ask Planet.